Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of the Finance Bro. We have real conversations with real people about money. Today, I have the co-founders of Storehouse Mastermind on here. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm a younger guy to them. They're both Naval Academy graduates, '02 graduates. I'm a 2015 graduate, so they'll have some jokes about that for sure. You see the smiles already. But these guys are doing some phenomenal things. Both retired from the United States Navy and both big in entrepreneurship. And, just before we started, hearing their story about how they've been kind of kicking it since they've been at the academy, which reminds me, so you all are familiar with me and Andre Truss as well. And we're the same, went through the academy. Unfortunately, we weren't in the same company, but we're still, since the academy, pushing together and building together. So it's really cool to see someone who came before me and before us kind of have built the same relationship and are doing the same thing. So I'm definitely excited for this combo today and to learn from y'all. But before we jump too far into it, can you please introduce yourselves and just let everybody know a little bit about you?
Hey, just real fast before we kind of get into introductions, Eric, I'm just curious, do you ever feel like you have to just carry your partner, your buddy Andre that you're buddies with through the Naval Academy? Because every single day I feel like I'm just like carrying the weight of David around. And that was at the academy too, roommates. I mean, every single day, man, just like, oh, just lugging him behind, just carrying him. Do you ever feel that way with
You
with
know,
Andre?
Fortunately, I don't.
Okay.
I
All right.
think we
Maybe I need to
work
find a
pretty
new
well
business
together.
partner then. I don't know.
I don't know how you
Well,
feel about that.
I'm a big believer that God does things for a reason. He puts people together for a reason, and I think He saw the weakness in Stu, and He saw an opportunity in me to help him get stronger. So I provided some resistance, some challenge to Stuart, because quite frankly, he was weak back then. He's weak now. Hey, and Eric, I just want to highlight one thing. This is the first time we've come on a podcast, and we've been on a few that our age was emphasized so much. Like, oh, these guys are so old; they came before me. I'm a young buck, and all this stuff, right? Let's just dial that back a little bit, because
Just a little bit.
We're not that old, man.
we have a storehouse. We're like the storehouse wine, right?
Yeah.
And it gets better with age. It gets refined with age. The taste gets a little more deep. So I'd rather us focus on that stuff.
I much respect. I respect that. It's a different perspective. And it's funny y'all mention that because I'm starting to hit that room as well. Like a lot of the young guys I know from the academy, like, oh, are you in your 30s? Like, bro, you're old. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with yourself?
Yeah, so old, so old. No, I love it, man.
I know how you feel. But it's awesome though. I'm really excited for today. Like, just already, I could tell it's about to be a good show.
Well, I'll tell you, we'll answer your question now, the intro. So my name is David Gutierrez. I'm a 2002 grad, as Eric highlighted. And, I think I had 20-year career, got out in June, retired last June. So relatively recently, I was a cryptologist, which basically means, I did spooky stuff. I can't talk about it, all the intel type stuff, but it was an amazing career. It enabled my family and I to scratch a lot of the different itches that we have, like travel, adventure, overseas, this amazing life that the Navy provided. Quite frankly, I think we lose sight a lot of times in the military. The experiences I had in Italy, for example, I mean, you'd have had to be a multi-millionaire to spend 2 years in Italy and travel throughout Italy. I mean, it was a drive for us, right? To drive up to Rome and the Amalfi Coast. I mean, the Amalfi Coast to me was like, hey, we got a few hours. Let's just go do a little drive, right? It was something simple, but it was such a blessing. It was an amazing time. I just absolutely loved our time in the military, but it also helped me to meet some incredible people, right? Stu and I have been best friends for 25 odd years at this point. Met some incredible people that, iron sharpens iron, right? There's a lot of iron out there that I've met that have really refined and helped me grow and challenge me to be a better man. And then, of course, having a brother like Stu, he's Uncle Stewie in my house, right? I have 3 kids, and all my kids talk about Uncle Stewie. There's no, my friends are my family, and our family, our friends are our family that we choose. And so Uncle Stewie is the uncle to my 3 beautiful children, and my wife. He's like one of those that kind of annoying younger brothers to my wife. That's what Stu is to her as well.
Probably true. It's probably how she looks at me.
Yeah, it's probably, but yeah, I don't want to bore you with the details of the military career, but it was an amazing thing. And in the midst of that, Stu and I decided to start a couple businesses, and that, being able to pivot and refine our vision has gotten us to where we are today, where we're extremely excited and focused on, we'll talk about this during the show, but the Storehouse Mastermind and the retreats we're running, and the truly the change that we're seeing in men's lives, just from some focus and a real desire and passion to get to action, to change our lives through action, not just talking about it, and to do something about it.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, so Stuart Grazier, I, similar to David, Naval Academy grad, went to 20 years of service. I went into aviation. I flew helicopters for 10 years, and then transitioned to Boeing 737s for a couple of years. David and I were blessed to be able to have a time period where we were stationed in the same location. We were both in Italy at the same time, in Naples, Italy. We were on staff there, and at that point, David and I started having conversations about what we wanted to do after the military. We had both been investing in real estate separately. We both had some similar experiences, negative experiences with real estate. And so we started just kind of having these conversations of what would it look like after we get out, and what would it look like if we go into business together. So we started to kind of building out these ideas of doing some real estate together, buying properties, building out a company based off of some of the experiences that we had. And at the same time, we really wanted to build community. Important to us to build relationships, have meaningful relationships with people, and take all the lessons that we learned from real estate and help other people do it the right way. And so we started kind of building out these real estate companies, and with the idea that we were going to take our own values, our belief system, and embed that into what we were doing every day. We came up with our first company, Storehouse 310 Ventures, which was a real estate turnkey company, with this idea of we take this first 10% of our profits and give it into charity. That came from Malachi 3:10 in the Bible. So we kind of brought our faith into the equation. And so we started building that out. We started buying houses, selling houses, rehabbing houses. We got to the point where we were doing 40, 50 houses a year, all while we were still, in the military, in the Navy, in leadership positions. David was the executive officer, then the commanding officer of a cyber command. I was the executive officer of a big Navy reserve center here in Colorado. And so we were doing all that aside, and we were honestly just wearing ourselves down. We saw ourselves just losing focus on what was a priority, or what we said was a priority in our lives. We said we were doing these real estate businesses for our family. And we surrounded ourselves with other people that said that they were doing real estate for their family and, building wealth for their family. But when you really looked at it, we weren't doing it for the family, because they just wanted our time. They just wanted our presence. And, my kids saw me I was the dad with the cell phone in front of my face. And my 4-year-old at the time, he's now 5, he just wanted to play football with daddy, right? And he would just say, "Hey, Dad, put the phone away, Dad. Can we play?" And so, like, we both had kind of these aha moments of what we really wanted out of life. And we, took that and said, all right, we got to pivot. We got to change some things. We need to get back to what's most important in our lives: our faith, our family, our kids, our health, and just really kind of take a stab at, like, getting back to what was most important. So that's kind of a start of where we are now. We can dive more into that. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about us.
And that's awesome, because we have so much in common.
Yeah.
Even though y'all went through a little bit before me, I'm gonna keep hitting on that,
Just a little bit, just a little bit. But no, that's awesome. I mean, from the family aspect to having values, all of these things I think are so important. And I don't think people realize. I have conversations with people a lot about what it's like. They think the military is kind of like, you just go in and play dress up, and it's not that involved. But those positions you all held, as XOs and things of that nature, that comes with a lot. You have a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of people that depend on you. And I don't think
a lot of people understand that, like, in those positions, it's almost like you have two families, right? You're balancing your natural family that you go home to every night, but you also have, you know, your family that are on the ship or in the unit that you're at. And that can become very difficult with, also, like you said, 40 to 50 properties a year. Like, I know people can get overwhelmed with just doing a couple. You know, that's a very tall task to take on top of having to make sure that you're there for your troops every day. So jumping, like, how did y'all learn to, I guess we go start there, learning to to do that balance between business and family life? That's something that I see people struggle with every day. And me, you know, I don't have a family yet, but also as someone who's going to have one day, you know, prayerfully, that's something, you know, I would also like to just ask you all in general, like, what your advice would be for that, like someone who wants to get into business and has these aspirations and wants to keep their foot on the gas pedal, but also knows that one day they do want to have a family. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, you know, there's a couple things. One, I don't think you could ever start too soon.
Mm,
And I think we build habits and we build intention, and that's very powerful. But also, you know, one of the most interesting things that we've noticed, you know, and speaking to me personally, you know, within our mastermind, within the group, but also as a coach, when you talk to somebody, what's been mind blowing for me is a lot of times it's just making somebody aware of something through a
mm,
question, right?
mm,
Just, you know, just making them aware of a perspective. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest perspectives that changed my life was, and this probably happened, I don't know, 4 years ago.
okay.
And someone, I heard somewhere, I read an article about balance. And what the article talked about is, it said, there is no such thing as balance in life. The
Mm,
best you can hope for and the best that you can strive for is that you put 100% of yourself where you're at. And so that's very empowering, right? Because
mm-hmm,
it frees you up from the burden of trying to, well, I got to balance in my family and my work life. No, what you have to balance is your priorities. If you're going to
mm,
balance priorities and set time on your calendar for the things that you want to be dedicated to,
mm-hmm,
right? And what that means is, when I'm at work, if I'm a CO, if I'm in a group with men, if I'm in a coaching session, if I'm doing something, I need to be 100% present and 100% dedicated to that thing that I'm doing, to those people that I'm serving, ideally the people that I'm serving in all those roles. And so if I'm 100% present serving those people, then I can then go to the next event and say it's going home to be with my family. Well, I should be 100% dedicated to them in that moment. I should put
mm,
the phone down. I should do things that, you know, I should be present. I should listen. I should engage. I should play. I should get on the floor, whatever it is, if I'm with my kids
mm-hmm.
or with Stu. Sometimes you got to get on the floor with Stu and pinch his cheeks and be like, oh, Stu, you can do it, buddy. You know, but I mean, to be 100% present, how, you know, I was observing this. I pointed out to my kids the other day. We're in San Diego and we were out at dinner, and there was a young couple on a date. And I told my daughter, she's 12. And I think I'm not in the field of kill all devices and whatever, because I mean, this is a part of reality of who we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, I said, look at that young couple. Does that young man, and they're like right there, I'm like, does he look like he's having fun? And she's like, no. And I said, why not? She said, well, because his girlfriend or date or whatever, she's eating, twisting her pasta, and she's looking at her phone. And he's
Ooh.
sitting there like, this is awesome,
Mm,
right? And so my point to her was, be present. Always be present. And if you're hanging out with your friend and they're on their phone the whole time, like, how fun is that? Like, I'm like, dude, put your phone away, or else just like, let's do something else.
yeah.
Right. It's just about being 100% present and committed. And so there's no, if you're thinking about your family while you're at work and you call that balance, really you're just robbing work. And if you
Mm.
think about work when with your family, well, you're just robbing your family. So you should be 100% present where you're at. And that's what I think balance, quote unquote, balance looks like.
Wow, that's a great breakdown of that, because even over here, you know, you hear those conversations a lot where I think people are like, you know, like you said, you're at work, but you're thinking about your family, or you're at home thinking about work. And it's like almost like, you know, if you were more productive and did the things you needed to do while you were at work, you wouldn't have to come on. You're only thinking about what you failed to get done. You're not necessarily thinking about anything new that just popped up while you're home. So I can't wait to get that one. I'm gonna record that one and get it saved on my phone. That was a good answer.
Well, and let me add to it. I mean, I think a lot of people take a lot of pride in, being a multitasker, and trying to, like, accomplish multiple things all at once. And if you really think about multitasking, you can't be good at any of them if you're trying to do multiple things at once, right? And so, if you just stopped everything and you just focused on one thing, like, I'm going to be focused on my email for an hour. I'm going to be focused on my social media presence. I'm going to be focused at the dinner table with my family. I'm going to be focused at my kid's soccer game, right? And you take all those other distractions out of the way, how much better are you going to be at that one thing that you're focused on, right? It's not multitasking. Like, multitasking actually makes you worse at all of those areas instead of trying to
I
do
agree.
them all good, right?
Yep.
So,
Well,
and
in
I
that
think,
book, Stu, I want to
Yeah.
reference that book before you
Yeah.
finish. There's a
Go ahead.
book that both of us love. It's called The Myth of Multitasking by Dave Crenshaw.
Let me
So the
write that
myth of
down.
multitasking, and his subscript says how doing it all in quotes gets nothing done.
Yeah.
Great subscript.
That is
Yep.
great. Thank you for that. I'm gonna order that on Amazon today.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. And so, like, if you just think about how you show up every day, and there balance is kind of a myth itself, so, but instead change the word balance to focus or priority, or and then just map out your day in order of, like, priorities and focus, and just, we call it time blocking, right? Like, you set an hour on your calendar for focus time on whatever it is you're doing, and just time block out your day. There's so much better of a way to do it than trying to just juggle everything.
So I actually do the same things. I live and die by the calendar because I noticed it helped me become more productive. I think, I would just go at the day when especially first starting in the business, right? Because you're in the military, you're used to things being structured. You got to beat in this time, and then you go from there to being on your own. And for me, I hate meetings. I was the captain that came in and, like, yo, why wasn't this in the email? Like, we don't need to be sitting here talking about this. So, but coming back and being on your own and seeing that, like, if you don't have any structure, it does make it hard to focus because everything becomes a priority very quickly. And so a question would be, do you think that learning to focus that way came from your, not only the military, but also your entrepreneurial goals and, like, learning how to structure and build? And do you think that your entrepreneurial journey has helped you be able to kind of develop these tenets along the way?
Yeah, I think the military has a ton of amazing benefits, and then I think part of that is being able to figure out a battle rhythm, and understanding that you the best made plans are laid waste at first contact, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
And I think it makes us so for me, I've gone the other way, and I had to bring it back to the calendar because I was more like a very fluid, reactionary, quick to make decisions individual, but that's not that may sound kind of cool. The reactionary part, I can't stand. I want to be intentional. And so that part of it, that really hit me of, like, okay, how do I get out of this reactionary phase and be intentional with my time? But I think for us too, recognizing, there's something we talked about a number of years back. Look at your checkbook and look at your calendar, and that's going to tell you what's most important to you.
Ooh.
Period. So I challenge anybody, look at your calendar and look at your checkbook, and that'll tell you what's most important. You can stop lying to yourself at that point, right? So when people say family is my number one, okay, cool. Show me your calendar. Where does your family time, if we honor our calendars, where is that time on your calendar? Where is date your wife time? Where is hang out with the kids? Where is time set aside? Because you're saying it's a priority, so let's put in the calendar. And you just highlighted, Eric, you said, you follow that calendar and you got very specific. Well, as you do go into having a family and all that kind of stuff, it becomes even more important to take that time and put it. And some people are like, it's too rigid. Okay, well, I'm just telling you, if it's not on your calendar, it's not getting done. So if it's important, then your family will make it on your calendar. I got date day on my calendar. I could pull it up right now and show you every Friday where I spend time with my wife very intentionally, just with her. Date days with the kids and time with the kids is on the calendar. So I think these things are very important as you continue to add things to it, because life tomorrow is going to be more busy than today.
Yeah.
You start throwing in other human beings, man, you start adding people to that list, man, it's going to get very complicated very quickly. And you're forced to juggle that. If you say your family is the number one priority and you look at your bank account and you got a lot of money going to golf, but none going to hanging out with your kids, I mean, you should just acknowledge it and be honest and be like, okay, my kids are less important than golf. And when you say that, hopefully things change.
Oh man. Y'all dropping some bombshells on this one. This is also, I can only imagine what y'all talk about at the retreats. Like, oh man, I can't wait. I actually sent the invite to the guys, not to get off topic, but I did send it to them. We're excited. So we'll be filling that out this week now that we're back. So nice, I'm gonna definitely pull up on you guys. I need this.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. And well, I mean, we didn't come about all this stuff overnight, right? Like we do have a few years on you, but a lot of it was just through our own failures, honestly, and having this growth mindset of like taking that failure, learning from it, and then pivoting and changing the way we show up. We had failures in our businesses. We had failures, in our home life and our friendships and our businesses, and like, just learning, just constantly learning and just taking things and tweaking it and pivoting and just making it better every single day and just trying new things until you get it right.
That's something that I see with clients too, and something that I try to teach. And that's a skill that I think has to be developed, because a lot of people run into an obstacle and say, oh, well, this just wasn't supposed to be, when in reality, the only difference between that person and a person that's seen as a skilled expert in the field or in that topic is that they took the lessons from the obstacles and now they've built such a rep. I was telling, for example, I was talking to one of my young guys about properties one day, and I was telling him, like, when you see those guys that can walk up and like look at this thing and say, okay, hey, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars to do this. And you like, bro, we didn't even go through the front door yet. Like, how do you know
that?
And he's like, because he's had 20 years of losses, right? Or obstacles or lessons that he's used to build lessons for himself along the way to learn from. And even, me, I've now learned that just you can apply that to so many different areas of your life. It's like the purpose of the losses, if you will, is to gain the lessons, because that's how you gain the perspective to keep moving forward. And like you said, that growth mindset is extremely important to operate that way. Because I think if you have goals for yourself, to expect it to go well all the way through is just completely unrealistic. And so,
man, I love that. I love that. Yeah, you make me think of three things. Three words popped in my head when you're talking, Eric. It's failure, change, and really there's this idea of prioritization, right? So the failure piece, it's funny because I am nowhere near, I am better than I was. I can say that 100%. And I invested in that, right? I've got my own coaches. I've got things that I invest in that cost me sacrificing money and stuff, right? But the failure piece of that, we should embrace that. So I have this notebook here. This one is to my daughter. I have 4 of them, one to my wife, one to my daughter, and 2 others to my son. So I write them letters. But this morning, I just want to highlight this morning. So this is awesome. And I think my kids will appreciate it. But 3 things happened this morning. So one, I looked through it and I started in 2016. I'm still on this first one. It showed me my inconsistency. And I should have 5 of these if I truly honored the commitment that I wanted to make, right? There should be 5 of these. This is the first one. And so it made me reflect on, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not writing every single week to my daughter, but I'm going to get there. I'm getting there. And what I wrote to her specifically about this morning was failure, because I said, you are 12 now, and I fear your perfectionism. And I hope you can learn that failure is just an opportunity to excel and grow instead of seeing it as the enemy. And so I wrote this morning. And when you talk about failure, it's teaching and embracing and knowing that we fail forward. If you're not failing, you're not trying. I don't care about what anybody says. If you're not failing, you're not trying. So failure popped in my head. And then change. Something's got to change for things to change, right? You are exactly where you are based on all the decisions you've made to get you where you are. So you got to make
Yes.
better decisions,
Yes.
or just embrace it. Right. And then that last piece is that prioritization and that honesty, and really, and prioritizing honesty, and just be honest. I'll tell you, one of the most powerful things that Stu and I have done is we've just simply stated things as the truth they are. What I mean by that is, hey, Stu, I love you as my best friend, but we don't hang out, and I'm not going to make it a priority to hang out. So I'm just telling you that that's the truth, right? Like, that's the truth. If we're not hanging out, that is the truth. So say it. As painful as it is to say it, say it. Or do something about it. Stu, I love you. You're my brother. I want to hang out. Hey, every Thursday, it's on my calendar and his calendar. We do something together, whether it's snowboarding, mountain biking, coffee. We have a date day for Stu and David.
That's important, though.
We do. It is important, dude. As a business partner, as a best friend, both of those things, that time is important to set aside. So if you look at my calendar, Stu, who is important to me, is reflected in my calendar. And so you have to be honest with yourself so that you can then drive that change. And ideally, not by intention, I didn't design it this way, but when you make that decision, you're honest, you can drive that change, and then that change can lead to failing forward, right? I should write that down, man.
You should.
But ultimately, it really helps us to continue to grow, because we're not where we want to be. Like, Stu and I by no means have any monopoly on being great dads and husbands and friends, especially Stu, terrible friend.
Hey,
But
you're about to steal my line. I was about to say you got a long way to go.
yeah, I do. But I do, and I embrace the truth of knowing how far I can go from here, and knowing that it's possible, because it's awesome.
I think, because that's such a spot on thing when it talks about growth, because I think a lot of people think that growth is just you go to like a certain age or to a certain position. And one of the things that I've come to learn just through the conversation and reading and doing research is that growth is a journey. You should see it as just a continuous journey until we check off of the earth. Like, and I don't think it's tied to an age or to a specific destination. Because I heard a quote one time. I want to say it was matter of fact, it was John Maxwell. And he was like, the moment that you feel comfortable or start feeling like you've made it is the day that you start to die. And I was like, oh wow, I don't ever want to feel like that. So like it's just pushing you to continue growing and trying to get it, because you can always be better. There's always more for us to be able to attain, and we should always be seeking to be better than we were yesterday. Because in reality, if you're not seeking to be better and you're not really seeking anything, then what else are you going to do? Like, I don't want to feel that. It gets, our whole lives, at the academy, the military, each day is like, all right, what's the next step? What's the next goal? What's the next mission? Let me get there. And then now we get to a point to where it's like, all right, cool. Like, I have a family now. I have a business. I have some money coming in. Cool. I made it. But then they start wondering, those people, things tend to start falling apart because they stop doing the things that are required to hold everything together. Like, like you said, how you say your back, your shoulders, you gotta keep doing those reps to maintain the weight, right? Like, if you're not in the gym every day, like, you can't continue to bench 225 if you keep taking breaks from the gym. Like, it's just not something that's required. You have to keep doing that work every day. And I think people see it as something that, all right, well, I'll do the work when I see something going wrong. It's like, on the ship, if you got what do we call it, where you got a hole and you got to patch it up. Like, they wait for the holes to patch up instead of just doing the maintenance every day. If you do the maintenance every day, it's less likely that things are going to go wrong. But it's kind of a long drawn out, but I love that.
No, man, it's spot on, dude. So like, David and I have been studying a lot on just meaning, like, the meaning of your life. And we've been studying just this idea of being the hero of your journey. And a couple authors that we've been kind of diving into and learning about is, one, Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he was a prisoner in concentration camps. And he found a way to find meaning in his life while he was a prisoner in concentration camps. And he boiled it down to 3 things. He said that you have to find a mission and a purpose that's bigger than yourself. That's number one. Number two, you have to find a group of people that you can share that beauty and that mission and purpose with. And three, you have to understand that there's going to be hardships, there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be failures along the way, but embracing those and knowing that you're going to get better from it. So in a concentration camp, like, he was finding meaning in his life. So if he could do it, I bet you a lot of us could do it too, right? And so, this idea of becoming the hero of your journey and finding meaning in your life, a lot of us in the military have that, right? It's kind of given to us. We have that mission and purpose. We're put into community. We're put into a command, a squadron, a battalion, a unit. We have friends. We have calendars. We have schedules. We have deployments. And it's going to be hard. There's going to be challenges. So we kind of, like in the military, they kind of give that to you. They kind of hand it to you on a silver platter. But once you get out of the military, for a lot of people, it all stops, right? And now you don't know where to find that. You don't have a purpose and a mission anymore. You're not surrounded in community, and challenges and failures just become that, challenges and failures, and you don't know what to do about it, right? So that's when, like, this veteran suicide and anxiety and depression and all these things start to happen, is when you don't have another mission to jump into. And so, like, David and I have been really passionate about, like, teaching that and helping others find that and finding meaning in life, and, like, getting people that are transitioning from the military service to get them and help them along the way and guide them to become a hero of their journey and find a new meaning to come up with, find that second peak to go climb, right? It's been pretty powerful to want to experience it and to try to guide and help others through it.
Yeah, that's critical. 'Cause even me, when we got out of the military, one of the toughest things that I realized was figuring out who I was outside of the military. I could tell you who I was as a Marine. A Marine, like, as a Marine, oh, I was on it. But you got out, I was like, and it was simple stuff, like, people were like, "Oh, so what do you like to do for fun?" And I couldn't give them an answer. I
don't know.
Go to the field. I don't know, like, and it's like, wow, I really don't know myself, because my identity was defined by the organization. And so it was hard to get out of there. And I felt like, I lost a piece of myself, when in reality, no, I just never had the opportunity to define who I was first. And while I felt like I knew myself, I really didn't, because everything was defined around the needs and the goals and the mission of the military. But you hit on something in the book, Man's Search for Meaning, which I talk to about with my financial coaching clients, which is your group or your circle. And I talk about how important your circle is for so many reasons. One, just in a financial standpoint, I see so many people who are trying to get their money together, and the people that they continue to spend time with do not, like, say they want to, all right, I'm going to stop eating out. I need to save money. And I know that my budget buster is eating out. But the people that you stay on the phone, that you spend time with every week, try to pull you back into going to spend the money that you don't need to spend, even after you vocalize it to them what your goals and your mission are, because they can't see the value in it, because they haven't done it for themselves. And instead of just removing yourself from the situation and finding people who have the same goals and understand why that is important, understanding why those things matter to you, and understand the long game, you're going to continue to be in those situations where in reality, most people just give up because they feel like, oh, it's not worth it. And they think the whole world is like the people that they're with. In reality, you just have to go fish in another pond. Like, you can't keep fishing in the same pond expecting to catch different fish.
Yeah, man.
What are your thoughts on that?
I love that. I mean, I love that. I think, you want to pour jet fuel on your growth. You surround yourself with the right people, no matter what it looks like. Right. And so, we just got off a call before this with a marketing agency to help us with our business. Right. And my mind went to a place of, okay, yeah, is it expensive? Sure. What can they do? What do they bring to the table? They bring years of experience that can significantly shorten the gap between ineffective marketing and filling our retreats, getting the word out and filling our retreats with men that need a message that we're passionate about. So my part is, in Stu's part, to continue to cultivate, educate ourselves, and refine this this message and to put meat on the bones. As you notice, like most of the things we talk about, there's a book reference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not because we Googled before, okay, give me a good book. Like we have put time into reading these books because we know these books, if we distill them and are able to add value to others and not only provide a resource, but to take the ideas of that and talk about them, then that's a value to you and your listeners potentially, right? That's our passion. Our passion is to do those things. Well, my passion is not to read marketing books. Like that's not my passion.
Yeah.
But it is somebody else's passion, thank God. And so why not let them do their thing? Because we're surrounding ourselves, we're building our team. Well, same thing with these men, the men that we're talking to. Okay, I'm gonna say a few words to you, and this is from our circle, right? Family, friends, fun, health, finances, purpose, giving, intimacy, mindset, and faith. If you got after those things in your life, how fulfilled do you think your life would be? Even if you got after half of them, if you got after one of them this year, you got after one of those elements, how much more fulfilling would your life be? I think it'd be pretty dang fulfilling.
Absolutely.
Right. And so we're talking about these things with our group of men, and you have all those dudes, they're all ninjas. You have all their perspectives on these things. They all want to grow in all these areas. Come on, man. Like you surround yourself with people who challenge you to be a better dad and give you no kidding, hard hitting, like, okay, or a future father. If I wish I would have had a group of men like this before I had kids, before I had kids and before I had a wife to help me with some of these things, I would have been so much more well suited. I sent a text to a guy this morning that's not married, and I said, hey, have you ever heard of the concept of designing your wife? And I've not heard back from him. He's not married and he's looking for a wife. And the idea of this is something that we've learned through mindset development and other coaches, is making a list of what you want your wife to be. Well, what do you think that does? Well, it gives you a list of ways that you should be so that you can attract that person. Well, just that exercise in and of itself has so many benefits. But if you've never heard of it, then you don't know to do it. I wish I would have known that. I mean, my wife, thank God, she's the woman I would have designed, and I'm sure I'm the man she would have designed. But
questionable.
But I mean, yeah, question. Don't get her on your podcast. At least not for, a couple episodes. But the point is just the exposure to that idea and level of intentionality gives you a tool that 99% of people don't do. Yes. But if you're the 1% that does, you're going to have that 1% life.
Absolutely. And you hit on something right there too that I think is critical, because one of the top things that I feel like I gained from the military, and you kind of put it into real human aspect there, is flipping the map around. We forget that the enemy has a vote too, right? And that, for instance, your wife isn't the enemy, but you get where I'm going with this, right? And so they can sit down and he can write out all the stuff that he wants out of a woman, but most of the time we never flip that around and say, okay, now what would she want out of you? So that we can work on building those. And I think that's the really important part, because we always sit around, and say, oh, I want this and I want that, and this needs to provide this for me. And we don't ever realize that those things will never come to us because we haven't developed ourselves into the person that deserves to receive something like that. So that's very critical. And I'm glad you hit on that, because I think a lot of people miss that and they wonder why things aren't working in their favor. And it's like, hey, you don't get to just say you want that and get to remain the same, because that person has desires and things that they want out of something too, be it, whether it's a relationship, whether it's something dealing with finances, whatever it is, you have to be able to think both. And it requires you to be very unselfish. And when you learn to be more unselfish and start thinking about what others would desire from you and how you can help others, I think that really helps you build these scenarios for yourself.
Yeah, man. And you gotta, at the same time, kind of the oxymoron is to be unselfish, you gotta then just build on yourself too, right? And the saying of you're in the airplane and you lose oxygen, who do you put the oxygen mask on first? Right? You put it on yourself first, so then you can go and serve others, right? So then you can go and put the oxygen mask on your kids or your family. And so, like, David and I, we kind of had this aha moment of hey, we were we said we were serving ourselves and we were serving our community, and we were just grinding, we were hustling. I was up at 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. kind of working on our real estate businesses, and then we go to our Navy jobs, and we'd go serve our military brothers and sisters in arms, and then we would come home and we would serve our family, and we never really served ourselves. We never
Mm,
focused on ourselves,
mm-hmm.
and to the point where like of exhaustion, and like, where do we fit in some margin to like have friends? Where do we fit in some margin to go have fun? Like, when was the last time that we went and had belly laughing fun with other men?
Mm,
Right. And if you think about it, as you age, the number of your friends start to like diminish. They start to
yep.
decrease.
Yep.
You have all your buddies and friends from college, from high school, from college, from in the military, your commands. But how many of them do you actually stay in contact with, and like get together, and like David and I, like every Thursday we're going snowboarding, we're going mountain biking, we're going fly fishing, we're going doing something,
That's
we're
awesome.
doing like fun things. But like a lot of men don't do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so to serve others, you also have to serve yourself.
That's also important. That's something that I struggle with, is I was always being the guy that's there for people. I'm
Yeah.
always, but you do reach that breaking point to where like, wow, I've had to be here for myself as well. And I think for me, I've kind of hit that within the past year, really scaling back. And normally I never really thank Apple for much, but I actually really thank them for where you can put it on work mode and do not disturb. And I really started to implement that because last year, before the new year started, me and Andre, we sat down, and one of the things we spoke about was like, yeah, we talked about earlier, like being more present. And like, so we wanted to be more present. So like, if I'm ever sitting down, if I'm with anybody, you'll never see me pick a phone up. Like, and it's these little things that matter, because I noticed that I don't necessarily like it. If I'm, like you said, you mentioned the guy on the date and he's out there in the phone, I've experienced that. I'm like, wow, like what am I here for?
Yeah.
So you know what? I'm
Hey,
going to take a
wait
step
until
back.
4-year-old calls you out. Like, hey dad, put the phone away. We were supposed to be playing football right now. Put the phone away, dad. Right?
Oh, that's a different
Well,
level.
and I love that you said you and your buddy did that, because like Stu, and it's funny now, but you need people to also keep you accountable and to hold you to that higher level that you want to be. So like Stu, when we're talking, either one of us, if we start veering towards like a computer or a device, like I love to just be like, hey, eyes, come on, man. Like, we're talking right now, and I don't want to, like, come on, let's focus on each other,
Mhm.
because this is important. And even if it's not important, like I'm just flapping my gums, like I want to be heard in the
Right,
moment.
right.
So I'm gonna say something, and
Dude
and
likes to
so I
talk.
think,
Dude likes to
yeah,
talk.
I love to talk, but there's an important element of who you're surrounding yourself. And if you're hanging out with somebody who's sensitive and can't receive that kind of thing, like, are they going to help you grow? Right?
Right.
Are they going to help you grow? And do they want to grow? And if you're hanging out in that, then why? And I'll tell you one thing that you said, excuse me, Eric. There's a level of, just being able to know and say something and recognize it as a truth
Mhm.
for ourselves helps that growth too, right? And so when you're
Mm.
talking about, your calendar, or when you're acknowledging things that are not necessarily your strengths or your strong suits or whatever, just acknowledging those things and then making a decision off of them, right? And not living in this perpetual ignorance that doesn't allow you to take any actionable steps towards doing something about something. And
Mm.
I think just that self-awareness and that acknowledgement of being able to also recognize that not everything that's not good is bad in our
Mhm.
lives, right?
Mhm.
To embrace these different areas of growth opportunity so that you can then move forward from there. And a lot of it requires a level of self-awareness. And even this morning, I was journaling. I was doing my personal journal. I was, I like to wake up. I like to get in the Word, and I wrote down. It's something I read hit me, and I'm reading this book called The Four Tendencies, and
Mm.
it's about it's just another perspective of personality, and it's how you if you meet internal and external expectations, right? So
Mhm.
like there's obligers, and I fall into the obliger. I meet external expectations more than I meet internal expectations. So a lot of the times I will allow myself not to PT or do things that are important to me. And so I wrote these things that I've been saying for years are important: God, family, and friends. Those are my priorities. And this morning, I looked at that and I said, where does David fit into that?
Mm.
How does David fit into God, family, and friends? If I'm constantly focused on God, family, and friends, where is the margin built in for me to Stu's point to give back to me? And is that important or is it selfish? Do not believe the lie that just because something sounds good, God, family, friends, that sounds beautiful, dude. Like, I'll admit it right now. That sounds beautiful. But in practice, where am I getting my energy from? And if there are ways to get it in family and friends and God, then I need to be intentional with highlighting those action items that bring me growth so that I can show up the best I possibly can for my God, for my family, and for my friends.
Mm.
And so that was a very kind of roundabout way to just say, this is not something that you achieve. This is an area of growth that never, ideally, to your point, Eric, never stops, because when you do arrive, quote unquote, I'll arrive when I'm dead.
Yep.
Like, that's when I'm going to arrive, right? But up until that point, man, I am not going to stop. And if you can't keep up, then it's time for me to find the people, not that keep up, but that I'm chasing now.
Yep.
And to constantly be doing that. And if you find the right people, you can do that together. Like Stu we're like this, right? We're racing, but I'm here and he just passed me. Well, now I got to put some effort and get better, because the better we are, the better we are for those that we serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Stuart, did you have something to add?
This one time, David probably said it all, so he's good. Just this one
So
time, though.
now, with this is a show. So I do want to ask you, because I know you work with a lot of men. So I don't know if you can answer this, but if you can, please, like, what is the issue that you've seen with men when it comes with making and managing money? Because me as a coach, I see a lot. There isn't, for some reason, like, there seems to be a lack of emphasis on like really building a foundation for ourselves. They're buying these expensive cars with payments that are taking 57% of their monthly income. They aren't structuring themselves correctly. Their decisions they're making, they're going to be paying for the next 10 or 15 years, which just keeps them behind. And then the behind feeling they feel because they're barely making men's meat every month and living paycheck to paycheck builds into other places. Now they can't focus on work, and everything snowballs in the opposite direction for them because they're not making the right decisions with money. And I have my thoughts, but I really want to see, because y'all, oh man, y'all have so much great input right now. So one of the books I'm reading right now is called The Obstacle is the Way. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but just going back through it. But it's talking about so many things, like, for instance, people will sit here, like, they'll sit here, know that they're having financial strife, but they'll spend more time thinking about it and why they won't ever be able to get out of it, instead of just saying, you know what, today I'm going to make the decision to make a budget, to start spending responsibly, and do all the things required to just get them out of it. Now it's been 5 years and they're in the same position and they don't know how they got there. So I guess the question for y'all is, do y'all see, like, what do y'all think causes like that issue for men when it comes to making and managing money?
I mean, we have lots of thoughts on it. One comes to mind right off the bat is, I think a lot of us find our identity
Mm-hmm.
in our jobs, our business, our wealth, what we do,
Mm-hmm.
instead of, kind of what you alluded to earlier is like finding out who we are as people, what God made us to be,
Mm-hmm.
a follower of Jesus, if that's what you believe in,
Mm-hmm.
a man of God, a husband, a father, a leader, a friend, and not focus so much on these worldly values,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not
Mhm.
find your identity in the house you live in, the car you
Mhm.
drive, the number in your bank account,
Mm.
right? Because I think so many men think that they're going to find happiness in those worldly things.
Mm.
They're going to find joy in the beach vacation sipping mai tais. And yeah, that could be good for like a week, right? But that gets pretty old if you're going to do that every single day,
Yeah.
right? And it goes kind of back to that idea of finding meaning in your life. Nowhere in Viktor Frankl's book, in a concentration camp, was he focused on buying the Maserati,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And hustling and grinding to buy the next real estate deal, or find the next hedge fund that's going to make you a whole lot of money. Nowhere in there is that idea. So I think so many men just get wrapped up in this identity and finding happiness and joy through the things they own and the things that they do,
Mm.
in the worldly sense, in the secular sense, that they lose focus on the most important things in their life.
Phenomenal answer. Thank you. Thank you for that. That
Yeah,
was
let me
You're
add
welcome.
one
Hey,
thing to
David, did
that.
you hear that? Phenomenal answer.
Yeah, he
Phenomenal
felt
answer.
obligated. He felt obligated to throw you a bone, Stu. And we normally see that in our podcast too. A lot of times it's from the other perspective. Our guests will be like, "Oh, great question, Stu," and that's like a unicorn. um, but I also, one of the things that Stu and I focus on in our lives, and we really really push and force in our group.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a PDF that'll help do this too, that we provide to your audience as well.
Okay.
But it's defining, no kidding. Take all the things that are important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So success, whatever, like no kidding, go to the dictionary and look up the word success. See what the definition of success is. And then you, using your brain and your thought exercise, further define that kind of sets the tone, gets your brain going. You define it. No kidding. You want to talk about financial success. Okay. Everybody talks about financial success. What does that mean? Like to Eric, that could be, I need 10 million bucks. To David, that could mean I need 100K a year. Like it's such an ambiguous thing that to even have a discussion about financial success to me you're starting from a point of ignorance. Because until you define what success means to you and what it enables you to do and gets you beyond more, then you can start having a conversation. And not only have a conversation, but then you can tie action items. Like most people don't realize, to be financially free, most of us require, I mean, depending on your lifestyle, there's no judgment in this, but maybe for me, that's $5,000 a month. Well, do I think I can make $5,000 a month? Yes. I think I can passively figure out a way to create $5,000 a month. Well, if I do that, I'm now financially, if I make $5,001 a month, I'm financially free. I'm completely financially free. And to me, that may be success. A lot of us hear success and we're like, oh, I got to make $1 million a year. Well, dude, that's not that could be such a far hurdle for you that it'll drive your inaction. But if I tell you, no, we just need 5K a month because you did a budget. We just need 5K a month. Can you do that? Heck yeah, I can do that. Awesome. We define success. We now have action items to get you to something that's achievable outside of some nebulous term, a millionaire. Like, who cares if you're a millionaire? Did you even know what that means? Like, who cares?
Yeah, I wish Andre was on this because we've had this exact conversation multiple times. And so there's two pieces that I want to add to this. So one thing I learned is gratitude. Well, after getting out, I learned, like, one day I remember I was sitting in my living room. I had just cleaned the house. I'm sitting this, and it's just me in here. I got the lights blue, the vibe is nice, music's playing, and I was like, wow, I really don't need anything. I have everything that I need. Like, if I spent more money, it would just be do this bigger, and for what? It's just me. And through that, I really stopped wanting, because I had gratitude for what I already have and realized that everything I needed was here. If I want people to come visit, there's a space for them. I have a home where I'm comfy. Like, I go outside and I don't have to worry about what's going on out here. It's safe. And I'm like, wow, everything I need And so what that did is kind of align to the second thing you were talking about, which is like, okay, so what does a sustainable lifestyle look like? And, everybody, like you said, wants to go, oh, I need $10 million a year. When it's like, well, in reality, your lifestyle takes $3,500 a month. So can you get that passively? Spot on to exactly what you said. And it's like, well, that's a very different way to look at the problem. Because like I like how you said, thinking about such a big number, that's going to drive you towards an action. It's like, wow, that's a lot. Like, what do I have to do? And the things that would have to get done. It's overwhelming, especially if you're not a person that's trained yourself to be able to take on a task that would have to be large enough to gain that much money, because you're not getting that just from waking up and smiling at someone's face. You got to go earn that. So now what that allows you, it takes a lot of pressure off by being like, okay, I don't need 10 million a year. I just need that 33. That's a very different way to look at the problem. And also it gives you some breathing room to like, all right, if I get that, now I can focus on what's important to me. Like, and it goes back to what Stuart was saying earlier about focusing on worldly possessions. Like, all of those things shouldn't define you and shouldn't focus on those things, because when you do that, you lose focus on what's really important at the end of the day. So I think gratitude and that piece on there is very big, because when you learn to be grateful for what you have, and you can really sit down and think about like, okay, I have these things. Really, what else do I need? Right? We're always thinking about what we need, but it's because we're just thinking of it from a bigger, fancier aspect. But who's that really for? It's not really for you. It's just so you can show off to someone else that you're doing well. Right? But the moment you stop caring about trying to show other people how you're doing, and you solely focus on how you and yours are doing, I think that changes the game for you completely.
David, what's that quote that we heard? I think it was Rick Warren who said, he's like, you buy things that you don't need with money that you don't have to impress people that you don't know or like. Is it something
Yep.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that quote because I think I think that's what happens. Like to your original question, we buy things that we don't need with money that we don't have to try to impress people that we don't know or like, because we find identity in that. And so that's where the mistake happens. If
When it's vicious because there's no end to it.
Yeah. How much do you
It's just
want?
more, right?
More.
Yep. It's always more. That's a dangerous place to be.
It's a dangerous place.
When you can't be grateful either, right? Eric,
right.
You can't express gratitude for when you just want more. And it's just a lie anyways, right? I mean, we should just be honest with ourselves and just recognize like you're just being lied to. Just like the same idea, we go back to this group, the same idea, that this American idea of it just toxic independence. I'll pull myself up by my bootstraps. It's all about me. If it's to be, if it's for me, it's to be whatever. Like it's all about me. Well, no, man, we are created to be in fellowship, to hang out with people, to have fun, to laugh. It's a lot less funny when you tell a joke and you're just laughing at it yourself, right? Like even at that base level. And so, getting past some of these lies is absolutely liberating. And to have a group of dudes to enjoy that with is like, I'm telling you, man, these retreats that we do, like I'm so excited about this one coming up in May.
Yep. Let's talk about it.
No. Like, well, yeah, we got 1 through 3 May. Any dude from your audience, come on, because it is limited. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Like it's limited space. But once it's full, it's full. But the point is, I have seen with my own eyes, and I have felt with my own heart the change that happens. Not only to me, like Stu and I always joke, our business, this business that we're in now, is very, very selfish, because we are growing and benefiting and having so much fun from these things that are quote unquote a business. But dude, it's just an amazing time of growth, fun, fellowship, like deep conversation, and they're all like-minded dudes. So inevitably, you're going to sit down next to a dude that's doing syndications. You're going to be like, oh man, I'm super interested in that from a business perspective. And then the next conversation you're going to have is, well, how's that affecting your family? Oh, well, here's some success tips on how to be a better dad, how to be a better husband in the midst of doing this amazing business thing. Like it's incredible to see how these things truly can exist together, and you can achieve and find success. And a lot of the times it's just being exposed to it from other men that are doing it too. And then you could celebrate each other, right? Like these guys aren't, oh man, if you succeed, it takes away from my pie. No, man, let's succeed together. How do we do that? How do we be better husbands? How do we be better friends? How do we be better fathers? How do we be better businessmen and entrepreneurs? How do we open up opportunities for each other in all these areas? And that's what I absolutely love about these things, because in person is so different. Like if we were sitting together doing this podcast, Eric, like I'd be reaching out, I'd be, smacking you on the back. We'd be, shaking hands. Afterwards, we'd hug, because I'm a hugger, man. I love to hug. We'd hug like that. Like just talking about that, like I felt it inside me. I felt endorphins released talking about it, right? Talking about us doing that. Well, when you're in person, you don't got to talk about it. You get to do that.
That's
and
true.
It's just natural. And if that group of dudes is high caliber, I mean, there's nothing like it.
This is going to be a good one, because one of the things that I speak a lot about with people is they talk about access to other driven good people, and the opportunities to go to things like this you don't really see them pop up much. And like, so I really, hats off to y'all for taking this amongst yourselves to like be able to build and create this thing, because I think it's so important, especially for men. Like like we talked about earlier with veterans not having because one thing is like talking about how to be better, but also it's just that safe space where you can talk and know that like you can be, I guess, vulnerable as a man, and like know that other people are going through the same things, and you can no one's going to be like, oh, well, that's stupid, or like make you feel bad. We're like, yo, bro, I've been through this too. Like, this is what I did to get through that. Like, here's what goes on. It's like, wow, okay, like you can really go and gain something from it. So I think this is important. Like I'm putting this out all everywhere. So I'm glad we've connected back through here. Shout out to the Academy, and shout out to Navy football as well.
Yeah.
But I think this was what it's all about. And I think even this conversation now is just showing that, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do these things alone. It's just sometimes it's reaching out. So I didn't really get to go into it earlier in the show, but for instance, like when Pedro sent me the message that Stuart had put out, he said, yo, I'm trying to get on more podcasts this year. I also like to get someone on mine. And he was like, hey, this guy's a Naval Academy grad, you should reach out. I said, oh, for real? Cool. I'm gonna reach out to him. And then, after a little while, I say, hey man, I get an email. Hey, sorry but I'm like, cool. And now we're here having a conversation. And it's, I think that teaches a couple good things, which one, like no one's going to know that you need the help until you ask. No one's going to know that you want to have the conversation until you let it be known. And then on the opposite end, you have to be if you see it, be the guy to say, okay, cool. If no one else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. And now we hear, and like this conversation is going to help so many people, but it all came through us being not being blinded with pride as men.